The wind howled across the rocky surface of Hyson 7, a small mining colony on the edge of known space. Nari huddled in the shadow of a large boulder, her body curved protectively around her 3 newborn cubs. Her white fur stood out against the dark rocks, making her easy to spot. This was not good. Not good at all. Nari was a Mirai, a cat-like alien species that had lived on Hyson 7 for generations. They had come to mine the rare minerals alongside humans, and over time, the 2 species had learned to work together. But some old Mirai traditions remained strong. She looked down at her cubs. They were perfect in every way, with tiny paws and soft ears. But their fur was pure white, their eyes a pale pink. All 3 were albino. Among the Mirai, this was seen as a terrible sign, a bad omen, a curse. "Please be quiet, little ones," Nari whispered as one of the cubs began to mew. The sound was tiny but might carry in the still air. If the elders found her, they would take the cubs away. Just 3 hours ago, she had been in the Mirai living quarters, proud of her newborns. Then Elder Dojin had visited. His face had turned cold when he saw the white cubs. "You know our ways, Nari," he had said in a stern voice. "White cubs bring bad luck. They must be left to the elements." Nari had backed away, shielding her babies. "No, they are healthy. They are mine." Elder Dojin had shaken his head. "Then you leave us no choice. The council has spoken. You and your cubs are no longer welcome among the Mirai. You have until sunset to leave our territory." The other Mirai had watched silently as Nari packed what little she could carry. Some looked sad, but none spoke up against the elders. Even her own brother, Gino, had turned away when she looked to him for help. Now, as the sun began to set, Nari faced the bitter reality of her situation. The colony was surrounded by rough terrain. The nights were cold. There were few places where an outcast Mirai and 3 newborn cubs could find shelter. The smallest cub, the one Nari had named Suk in her heart, began to shiver. Nari pulled her closer. "I will not let you die," she promised. "I will find us a place." A distant rumble made Nari's ears twitch. A transport vehicle was coming. She crouched lower, hoping to avoid being seen. The large, rugged vehicle rolled past her hiding spot, then stopped about 50 meters away. The door opened, and a human stepped out. The human wore the orange jumpsuit of the colony's mechanics. It was a male, not particularly tall for a human, with a tool belt hanging from his waist. He walked to the back of the vehicle and began checking something underneath it. Nari watched carefully. Her cubs needed warmth and food soon. The mining buildings might have both, but humans were strict about who could enter their spaces. Still, night was coming. She had to try something. Taking a deep breath, she gathered her cubs close. She wrapped them in the soft cloth she had brought and tucked them against her chest. Then, keeping low to the ground, she began to move toward the human's vehicle. One of the cubs let out a tiny cry. Nari froze. The human straightened up suddenly and looked around. "Who's there?" he called out. Nari stayed still, her heart pounding. The human took a small light from his belt and shined it in her direction. The beam caught her white fur, making it glow in the fading daylight. "Hello," the human said, taking a step toward her. "Are you hurt?" Nari tensed, ready to run. But where would she go? The sun was setting. The night would be cold. Her cubs might not survive until morning. The human moved closer, his light now fully on her. He stopped when he saw the cubs. "Oh," he said softly. His voice was not angry or afraid. It sounded concerned. Nari met his eyes. In them, she saw something unexpected. Not disgust at her white fur. Not fear of the bad luck she supposedly carried. She saw kindness. And in that moment, Nari made a choice that would change everything. Han wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag. It had been a long day fixing mining vehicles. The big haulers always broke down in the rough terrain of Hyson 7. As the colony's best mechanic, Han was always busy. "Time to go home," he muttered to himself. He looked at the dark sky through the workshop window. Night came quickly on this planet. Han packed his special tools into his bag. These tools were his pride. Some he had made himself. Just as he was about to lock up the workshop, he heard a strange sound outside. It was like a small cry. At first, he thought he was just tired and hearing things. Then he heard it again. Han stepped outside, the cold wind hitting his face. He pulled his jacket closer and took out his light. The beam cut through the darkness. He saw nothing at first. "Hello," he called. "Is someone there?" The sound came again, from under one of the old haulers that needed fixing. Han walked slowly toward it, his light pointed at the ground. Then he saw something that made him stop. Eyes. Glowing eyes, reflecting his light. And they weren't human eyes. Han knew about the Mirai, the cat-like aliens who lived and worked in the colony. He had fixed their vehicles before, but they usually kept to themselves. He had never seen one hiding under a hauler at night. "Are you hurt?" he asked, moving closer. The light finally showed the full scene. A female Mirai was huddled under the vehicle. Her fur was pure white, which was strange. Most Mirai Han had seen had dark brown or gray fur, but even more surprising were the 3 tiny bundles nestled against her. Cubs, baby Mirai. And they were all white too, with pink eyes that blinked in the light. The mother Mirai made a low growling sound. She was scared, but also looked ready to fight if he threatened her babies. "It's okay," Han said in a soft voice. "I won't hurt you." He knelt down, staying far enough away not to frighten her more. The wind was getting stronger, and the temperature was dropping fast. Han knew the nights on Hyson 7 could be deadly cold. Whatever had brought this Mirai and her cubs here, they couldn't stay outside. "You need to come inside," Han said, pointing to his workshop. "It's warm in there." The Mirai didn't move. One of the cubs made a weak sound. Han saw it shivering. Han knew the colony had strict rules. No unauthorized aliens in human buildings. But he also knew these rules weren't always right. He couldn't leave them to freeze. "Look," he said, "I don't know why you're hiding out here, but those little ones won't last the night in this cold." The mother Mirai looked at her cubs, then back at Han. He could see the fear and doubt in her eyes. But there was something else too. Hope. Slowly, Han reached into his pocket and took out his lunch. He had saved half a sandwich. He held it out to her. "You must be hungry," he said. The Mirai's nose twitched. Han could tell she hadn't eaten in a while. Still, she hesitated. "My name is Han," he said, tapping his chest. "I fix things. I'm a mechanic." He wasn't sure if she understood human language. Many Mirai did, but not all. Finally, the mother Mirai made a decision. Very slowly, she gathered her cubs closer and began to move toward Han. She stopped just short of his outstretched hand. "Nary," she said in a soft voice, touching her chest, like Han had done. Then she gently touched one of her cubs. "Suk." She touched the second, June, and the third, Taiwan. Han smiled. "Nice to meet you, Nary, Suk, June, and Taiwan." He offered the sandwich again, and this time Nary took it. She ate quickly, then broke off small pieces for the cubs. "Come," Han said, standing slowly and gesturing toward the workshop. "It's safe." Nary picked up her cubs one by one and followed Han into the warm building. As the door closed behind them, Han wondered what trouble he might be bringing on himself. But looking at the small family, he knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules. Han lived in a small room behind his workshop. It wasn't much, just a bed, a table, and a few shelves. But it was warm and safe. He cleared off his workbench and made a soft bed with spare blankets. "You and the cubs can sleep here," Han told Nary, pointing to the makeshift bed. Nary sniffed the blankets carefully before placing her cubs on them. The little white cubs curled up together, their tiny pink eyes closing in sleep. They looked so fragile. Han found some food in his small fridge. He wasn't sure what Mireille ate, but he offered Neri some meat and water. She ate quickly, her eyes never leaving her cubs. "Why are you alone?" Han asked. "Where is your family?" Neri's ears flattened against her head. She touched her cub's white fur, then pointed outside and made a pushing motion. "They sent you away," Han guessed, "because of the white fur." Neri nodded. She looked sad but also angry. Han frowned. He didn't understand much about Mireille culture, but this seemed cruel. Who would send away a mother and her newborn cubs just because of their color? The next morning, Han woke early. He needed to learn more about Mireille if he was going to help Neri and her cubs. He went to the colony's shared computer and searched for information. What he found surprised him. Mireille cubs were usually brown or gray. White cubs were very rare. The computer said some Mireille believed white fur was a sign of bad luck. But the computer also said something else. Albino Mireille had special eyes that could see things others could not. Han returned to his workshop with new supplies. He had taken food, extra blankets, and some special materials. If anyone asked, he would say they were for a repair job. When he got back, he found Neri trying to clean her cubs with her tongue. The smallest one, Suk, was crying. Her pink eyes were squinted shut. "The light hurts her eyes, doesn't it?" Han asked. Neri nodded. Han took out the dark glasses he had made from spare parts and tinted plastic. They were small, just the right size for a Mireille cub's face. "Let me help," he said, showing the glasses to Neri. Neri looked unsure, but she let Han put the tiny glasses on Suk. The crying stopped. Suk blinked behind the dark lenses, then purred. Han made glasses for June and Taewon too. "Better?" Han asked. Neri made a sound that Han thought might be her way of saying thank you. She rubbed her head against Han's hand, which surprised him. It was a sign of trust. Over the next few days, Han turned his living space into a proper home for Neri and her cubs. He built a special box with soft blankets that kept the cubs warm. He found the right foods that Mireille liked to eat. He even made toys for the cubs from spare parts. The cubs grew stronger each day. They started to crawl around, exploring their new home. Han enjoyed watching them play. Sometimes, when he was fixing something at his workbench, they would climb up his legs to see what he was doing. But keeping Neri and her cubs secret wasn't easy. Han's boss, Yoonji, noticed he was acting different. "Why do you need so many supplies?" she asked one day, looking at the long list Han had given her. "Big repair job," Han said quickly. "Very complicated." Yoonji didn't look like she believed him. "And why do I hear strange noises coming from your workshop after hours?" Han felt his heart beat faster. "Just testing some engines," he lied. "Really?" Yoonji raised her eyebrows. "Engines that purr?" Han didn't know what to say. If Yoonji found out about Neri and her cubs, she might report them to the colony leaders. Then they would all be in trouble. Just then, a call came in about a broken hauler that needed fixing right away. Yoonji had to answer it. "We'll talk more later," she said as she left. Han sighed with relief, but he knew it was only a matter of time before someone discovered his secret. He needed a better plan to protect Neri and her cubs. As he walked back to his workshop, Han wondered what he had gotten himself into. But when he opened the door and saw the 3 white cubs playing on the floor while Neri watched with proud eyes, he knew he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. 2 weeks passed. Han had become good at keeping secrets. He fixed vehicles during the day and cared for Neri and her cubs at night. The cubs were growing fast. Their eyes were fully open now, and they loved to climb on everything. One evening, Han was teaching the cubs how to clean small engine parts. It was funny to watch them try to hold the brushes in their tiny paws. Neri was resting nearby, looking happier than when Han had first found her. Then someone knocked hard on the workshop door. "Open up, Han," a deep voice called. Han felt his blood turn cold. He knew that voice. It was Elder Dojin, the leader of the Mirai Council. Nari jumped up, her fur standing on end. She quickly gathered her cubs and hid them under the workbench. "Stay quiet," Han whispered to her. Then he went to open the door. Elder Dojin stood there with two other Mirai. His dark brown fur looked gray in the low light. His yellow eyes were narrow with anger. "I know what you're hiding, human," Elder Dojin said. "You have taken in the White Ones." Han tried to block the doorway. "I don't know what you're talking about." Elder Dojin pushed past him. "Do not lie. We have watched this place. We have seen." The other Mirai followed Elder Dojin inside. They looked around the workshop until they saw movement under the workbench. "There," one of them said, pointing. Nari came out from her hiding place. She stood tall, her white fur clean and bright. She made a low growling sound. "The white cubs bring bad luck," Elder Dojin said to Han. "It is our way to leave them to nature. This female has broken our most important rule." "Your rule is wrong," Han said. "These cubs are healthy. They're special." Elder Dojin's ears flattened. "This is not your business, human. The White Ones must go. And you have broken colony rules by keeping aliens in a human building without permission." Han stepped between Elder Dojin and Nari. "I'm not letting you take them." Elder Dojin showed his sharp teeth. "Then I will report you to your human leaders. You will lose your job, maybe even be sent off this planet." The threat hung in the air. Han knew Elder Dojin could do exactly what he said. Without his job, Han would have to leave HFY 7. And what would happen to Nari and her cubs then? "The cubs stay with me," Han said firmly. "Do what you have to do." Elder Dojin narrowed his eyes. "You choose these outcasts over your own future." "I choose what's right," Han answered. Elder Dojin turned and walked to the door. "You will regret this, human. The colony will know by morning." After they left, Han sat down heavily on a stool. His hands were shaking. Nari came to his side and made a soft sound. "It's okay," Han told her, but he wasn't sure if it was. The next day, everyone was talking about Han and the White Mirai. Some humans came by the workshop just to look. Some were angry that Han had broken the rules. Others were curious about the White Cubs. In the afternoon, Han's communication device beeped. It was a message from Director Kyung, the head of the entire colony. "Come to my office. Now." Han patched up the vehicle he was working on and walked to the main building. His steps were heavy. He knew he might be in big trouble. Director Kyung was a stern woman with gray hair. She did not smile when Han entered her office. "Mechanic Han," she said, "I hear you have unauthorized aliens living in your quarters." "Yes, Director," Han said honestly. "You know this breaks at least 3 colony regulations." Han nodded. "I know, but—" Director Kyung held up her hand to stop him. "Elder Dojin has filed a formal complaint. He wants the White Mirai removed from the colony." "They have nowhere to go," Han said. "The cubs are too young to survive outside." "That is not my concern," Director Kyung said coldly. "My concern is keeping peace between humans and Mirai. Our agreement does not allow us to interfere with their traditions." She pushed a paper across the desk to Han. "These are your options. Either surrender the aliens by tomorrow, or face deportation back to Earth." Han read the paper, his heart sinking. It was an official order. There seemed to be no way out. "I'll need time to think," Han said. "You have until tomorrow morning." Director Kyung replied. "Choose wisely, Mechanic Han." Han left the office feeling lost. He had tried to do the right thing, but now he might lose everything. And worse, Nari and her cubs might still end up cast out or worse. He needed a new plan, and fast. Han walked back to his workshop with heavy steps. He needed help, and he knew just who to ask. He took out his communication device and called his old friend, Dr. Bora. Bora worked at the science center on the other side of the colony. She studied alien life forms. If anyone could help, it would be her. "Han, Bora's face appeared on the small screen. It's been too long. I need your help, Han said quickly. It's important, and it must be secret. Bora looked curious. Is this about the white Mirai I've been hearing about? Han nodded. Can you come to my workshop tonight? After dark. When night fell, Bora arrived, carrying a large bag. Her eyes went wide when she saw Nari and the 3 white cubs. They're beautiful, she whispered, kneeling down to look at them. Taewon, the bravest cub, came forward to sniff her hand. Bora smiled as the little white cub licked her finger. I need to know everything about albino Mirai, Han said. Elder Dojin says they bring bad luck, but I don't believe that's the real reason they reject them. Bora took out a small device from her bag. This can scan their bodies without hurting them. May I? Han looked at Nari, who seemed unsure. She wants to help, he explained to Nari. To show that your cubs are special, not bad. Nari thought for a moment, then nodded. She nudged Suk, the smallest cub, forward. Bora ran the scanner over Suk's body. The device made soft peeping sounds. Suk seemed to enjoy the attention and purred loudly. Amazing, Bora said, looking at the results. Their bodies are different from normal Mirai in several ways. Different how? Han asked. Their eyes can see things we can't, Bora explained. Heat, energy fields, even some types of radiation. And their whiskers are more sensitive too. They can feel tiny changes in air pressure. Han thought about this. So they're not cursed. They're better. In some ways, yes, Bora said. She pulled out an old book from her bag. I found this in the archives. It's about Mirai history. The book showed pictures of ancient Mirai. In one image, white Mirai stood apart from the others, wearing special clothes. Long ago, white Mirai were considered special, Bora said. They were advisors to leaders because they could sense dangers that others couldn't. But then there was a great war. The white Mirai warned against fighting, but the leaders didn't listen. After losing the war, they blamed the white ones. So they turned them from special to cursed, Han said, understanding now. Exactly, Bora nodded. It's not about bad luck. It's about old fear and blame. While Han and Bora talked, Nari had been listening carefully. She made a soft sound and pointed to the book. Then she went to Han's toolbox and pulled out a small metal detector he used to find lost parts. What is she doing? Bora asked. They watched as Nari took the metal detector and gave it to June, the middle cub. June held it in his tiny paws, then closed his pink eyes. The detector began to beep, even though June hadn't turned it on. That's impossible, Bora gasped. Unless he can sense the metal inside it, Han finished, just like the book says. Nari nodded, looking proud. She touched each of her cubs' heads. Then she pointed to her own eyes and made a motion like looking far away. You can all do this, Bora asked. See things others can't. Nari nodded again. Han felt hope rising inside him. This changes everything. The cubs aren't a curse. They have gifts that could be useful to everyone. Bora packed up her equipment. I'll write a report about this. Scientific proof that albino Mirai have special abilities. But it will take time, and Director Kyung wants your answer by morning. Han looked at Nari and her cubs. They were watching him with trust in their pink eyes. He couldn't let them down. I need to buy us time, Han said. Somehow, I need to show everyone that these cubs are valuable, not dangerous. As Bora left, Han sat down to think. How could he prove to the colony that albino Mirai were special? He was just a mechanic, not a scientist like Bora. Then he remembered something from his childhood on Earth. His father had told him, when words fail, let action speak. Han looked at the cubs playing on the floor. Maybe he didn't need scientific reports. Maybe he just needed to show everyone what these cubs could do. But how? What could 3 tiny cubs do that would change everyone's minds? As if answering his thoughts, All the lights in the workshop suddenly flickered. Then they went out completely. The darkness was complete. Han fumbled for his emergency light. When he turned it on, he saw Nari gathering her cubs close. Her eyes glowed in the beam of the light. "It's okay," Han said. "Just a power cut. It happens sometimes." But then his communication device beeped. It was an emergency message from the colony center. "Attention, all colony members. Main power system failure. VQP systems not responding. Remain calm and stay where you are." Han felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing heating system. This was not a normal power cut. This was serious. His device beeped again with another message. This one was just for him. "Han, this is the Receitor Kyung. Report to main control room. I'm an idiot, Eli. We need all TKNIKL this TFF." Han looked at Nari and her cubs. He couldn't leave them alone. But he also couldn't ignore a direct order during an emergency. "You need to come with me," he told Nari. "It's not safe here if the heat fails." Nari seemed to understand. She picked up Suk, and Han helped by carrying June and Taewon. They hurried through the dark halls of the colony, passing worried humans and Murray. When they reached the main control room, they found chaos. Director Kyung was there with other leaders. Engineers worked frantically at control panels. Everyone looked scared. Director Kyung saw Han and rushed over. She didn't seem to notice Nari and the cubs at first. "The environmental systems are failing," she said without greeting. "The main grid is down, and the backup won't start. If we can't fix it soon, oxygen levels will drop and temperatures will fall below freezing." "What about evacuation ships?" Han asked. Director Kyung shook her head. "The hangar doors are sealed. They run on the same power system. We're trapped." Then she noticed the White Murray family. Her eyes widened. "What are they doing here?" she demanded. Before Han could answer, Elder Dojin pushed through the crowd. "The White Ones," he hissed. "They brought this bad luck upon us." Some people began to murmur in agreement. Fear was making them look for someone to blame. "This isn't about luck," Han said loudly. "This is a technical problem, and we need to focus on fixing it, not finding someone to blame." Director Kyung nodded. "Han is right. Our chief engineer thinks the problem is in the main power hub, but it's deep in the maintenance tunnels. And with systems down, the tunnels are dark and may have dangerous gas leaks. We need sensors to find the problem," one engineer said. "But our portable ones were damaged in last week's storm." Han looked at Nari and her cubs. Then he looked at the small device Dr. Bora had left behind, the scanner that had shown the cubs' special abilities. "What if we had living sensors?" Han asked slowly. Everyone turned to him. "What do you mean?" Director Kyung asked. Han pointed to the white cubs. "They can see things we can't. Heat, energy fields, even radiation." Dr. Bora confirmed it. "They might be able to find the problem." Elder Dojin shook his head. "Nonsense. They are bad luck, not special." "Is that why ancient Mirai used white-furred advisors?" Han asked. "Because they brought bad luck? Or was it because they could sense things others couldn't?" Elder Dojin looked shocked. "How do you know of this?" Han ignored him and turned to Director Kyung. "We're running out of time. Let me try. The cubs might be able to sense what's wrong." Director Kyung looked at the worried faces around her, then at the failing lights. The room was getting colder by the minute. "Very well," she said finally. "But how will they tell us what they find? They're just cubs." "Nari will go with them," Han said. "And so will I." Nari stepped forward, standing tall. She looked at her cubs, then at the worried colony members. Then she made a sound that needed no translation. She was ready to help. "I'll need equipment," Han said. "Something to protect the cubs as we move through the tunnels." As engineers rushed to find what Han needed, He knelt beside Nari. "Your cubs might be our only hope," he told her. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Nari touched each of her cubs gently. Then she looked at Han with determination in her pink eyes. She had been rejected by her own people, yet now she was willing to risk everything to save them all. Han felt a surge of respect for this brave mother. Sometimes true strength came from the most unexpected places. "Let's go save the colony," he said. The maintenance tunnels were cold and dark. Han led the way with a small light. Nari followed close behind with Suk in her arms. June and Taewon rode in special pouches Han had made from tool bags. He had attached them to his work belt, so the cubs could look around while staying safe. "The main power hub should be about 500 meters ahead," Han said. He was talking more to keep himself calm than to give information. The air was getting colder by the minute. Their breath made little clouds in front of their faces. Han checked his device that measured oxygen levels. It was still safe, but dropping slowly. Behind them, connected by a long communication wire, was a team of engineers in the control room. They listened and waited for news. "We're approaching the first junction," Han reported back. No signs of damage yet. The cubs seemed excited by the adventure. Their pink eyes were wide open, taking in everything. Han had fitted them with the special glasses he made to protect their sensitive eyes. They reached a place where 3 tunnels met. Han wasn't sure which way to go. The map on his device was basic, and many smaller tunnels weren't shown. "Which way?" he asked out loud. Jun, the middle cub, suddenly perked up in his pouch. His little nose twitched, and he began making excited sounds. He was looking at the right tunnel. "You sense something?" Han asked. Nari made a noise and pointed to Jun, then to the right tunnel. She seemed to be saying they should follow his lead. Han decided to trust them. "We're taking the right passage," he reported back to the control room. "That's not on our maps," came the worried reply. "Be careful." They walked down the narrow tunnel. It got smaller as they went, until Han had to bend down to avoid hitting his head. The cubs became more excited. Jun was making little chirping sounds. Then they reached a small round door. It was an access panel to one of the colony's oldest systems, installed when HFY 7 was first built. The door was stuck, partly rusted shut. "Help me with this," Han said to Nari. Together, they pulled on the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a small chamber filled with wires and control panels. Most were dark, but one was flashing a weak red light. "We found something," Han reported back. "Looks like an old control node. That area wasn't upgraded when we expanded the colony," came the reply. "What's happening there?" Han examined the panel. It was covered in dust except for one area that looked recently touched. There were scratch marks around some wires. "Something's been chewing on the wires," Han said. "Probably those little 6-legged critters that live in the rocks outside." He looked closer at the damage. Several important wires had been cut. This could explain why the main system and backup both failed. They were connected through this old panel. "I can fix this," Han said. "But I need to know exactly which wires connect to what. It's an old system I'm not familiar with." This was a problem. The wrong connection could make things worse, maybe even cause an explosion. The engineers in the control room couldn't see what he was seeing. Suk, the smallest cub, suddenly wiggled in Nari's arms. She put the cub down, and Suk walked to the panel. Her tiny paws touched the wires carefully. Then she closed her eyes. To Han's amazement, Suk began to trace the path of energy through the wires. Even though no power was flowing, she could somehow sense the paths the electricity should take. "I think Suk can see the connections," Han told the control room. "She's showing me which wires go where." There was silence. Then Director Kyung's voice came through. "Can you trust this ability?" Han looked at Suk. The tiny white cub was completely focused, her paws moving from one wire to another with certainty. "Yes," Han said firmly. "I trust her." Following Suk's guidance, Han began to repair the damaged wires. He cut pieces from his own toolkit to replace the chewed sections. The cold made his fingers stiff, but he worked carefully. Taewon and Jun helped too. Taewon could sense which parts were still holding tiny bits of charge, parts Han needed to be careful with. Jun could feel when connections were solid by the way they vibrated when Han touched them. Working together, Human and Mirai, they slowly rebuilt the damaged connections. When the last wire was fixed, Han took a deep breath. "Ready to test," he reported. "Everyone stand back." He closed the panel and pressed the reset button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then there was a soft hum. Lights began to flicker on in the tunnel. Power readings increasing, came an excited voice from the control room. Main grid coming back online. Han smiled at Neri and her cubs. "We did it," he said. "You did it." The cubs purred happily. They didn't understand exactly what they had done, but they knew it was good. The return journey through the tunnels was much easier with the lights working. Han carried Suk, who was tired from using her special abilities. Neri carried Jun and Taewon. The cubs were quiet now, exhausted but safe. When they reached the main hall, they found a crowd waiting. Everyone wanted to see the white Mirai who had saved the colony. Director Kyung stood at the front with Elder Dojin beside her. "Mechanic Han," Director Kyung said formally. "Report on the situation." Han stepped forward. The power failure was caused by damage to an old control panel. Small creatures had chewed through critical wires. "We fixed it." "We?" Director Kyung raised an eyebrow. "Yes, we," Han said firmly. "I could not have found the problem without the cubs. And I could not have fixed it correctly without their special abilities to sense energy paths." The crowd murmured. Some looked impressed. Others still seemed unsure. Elder Dojin stepped forward. His face was hard to read. "These white ones helped save us." "Yes," Han said. "The very ones you called bad luck." Elder Dojin looked at Neri and her cubs. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he did something surprising. He bowed his head to them. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "our old ways need new thinking." Another Mirai pushed through the crowd. It was Gino, Nari's brother, who had turned away from her when she was exiled. "Sister," he said, his voice full of shame, "I was wrong to reject you and your cubs." Nari looked at her brother. She seemed unsure whether to forgive him. But then Suk reached out a tiny paw toward Gino. The gesture of the innocent cub seemed to soften Neri's heart. She nodded at her brother. Director Kyung cleared her throat. "While this family reunion is touching, we have colony regulations to address." She turned to Han. "You still broke the rules by housing unauthorized aliens in your quarters." Han stood tall. "I did. And I would do it again." "I believe you would," Director Kyung said. To Han's surprise, there was a small smile on her face. "However, rules exist for good reasons, even if sometimes they need flexibility." She turned to address everyone. "Today we all learned an important lesson. Difference is not always something to fear. Sometimes it is exactly what we need." She looked at the 3 white cubs, now sleeping in their mother's arms and hands. These cubs and their mother will be granted special status in the colony, and Mechanic Han will be their official human guardian. A cheer went up from the crowd, but then someone noticed something wrong. The cubs were too still. Their breathing seemed labored. "What's happening to them?" Han asked, worried. Dr. Bora pushed through the crowd and quickly examined the cubs. "They've overexerted themselves," she explained. "Their abilities take a lot of energy, and they're very young. They need rest and special care." The cubs were rushed to the medical center. For 3 days, Han barely left their side. Neri stayed too, grooming her cubs and singing soft songs to them. Even Elder Dojin visited, bringing traditional Mirai healing herbs. On the 4th day, Suk opened her eyes. Soon after, Jun and Taewon woke too. They were weak but alive. The colony had held its breath, waiting for news. When word spread that the cubs would recover, There was another celebration. They are strong, just like their mother, Han told Dr. Bora as they watched the cubs play weakly on a medical bed. And they had a strong friend who believed in them. Dr. Bora replied, "Never underestimate the power of someone who refuses to abandon others." Director Kyung came to visit once the cubs were better. She brought official papers. "These are colony citizenship documents for Neri and her cubs," she explained. "And this one is special permission for you to be their guardian." Han looked at the papers with tears in his eyes. "Thank you." "No, thank you," Director Kyung said. "You taught us all something important. Sometimes the rules need to bend so that justice can stand straight." As she left, Han sat down beside the cub's bed. Taewon climbed into his lap and purred. Neri watched with clear happiness in her eyes. "We did it," Han whispered to them. "You're home now. Really home." Outside the medical center, things were changing. Elder Dojin was speaking with the Mirai Council about reviewing old traditions. Humans and Mirai, who had rarely mixed before, were talking together about the rescue. And Dr. Bora was setting up a new research project to study the special abilities of albino Mirai. Sometimes it took a crisis to break down old walls, and sometimes it took one person showing compassion to start a chain of changes that no one could have predicted. 6 months passed. The colony of Hyson 7 had changed in many ways. The once hidden white Mirai family now had a proper home. Han had built an addition to his workshop, where Neri and her cubs lived comfortably. The cubs had grown much bigger. They no longer fit in Han's tool pouches. Suk, still the smallest, loved to sit on Han's shoulder as he worked. June enjoyed taking things apart to see how they worked. Taewon was the most curious, always exploring every corner of the workshop. On this day, Han was teaching the cubs how to fix a small engine. They sat around his workbench, their white fur clean and bright, their special dark glasses protecting their sensitive eyes. "This part spins to make power," Han explained, showing them a small motor. "When it breaks, nothing works." The cubs watched closely. Suk reached out and touched the motor with her paw. Her eyes closed for a moment. "Yes, that's right," Han said, smiling. "You can feel the path the electricity should take." Nari watched from nearby. She looked healthy and happy. She had learned many human words and could now speak basic sentences. "Cubs learn fast," she said proudly. "They sure do," Han agreed. "They'll be better mechanics than me soon." There was a knock at the door. It was Elder Dojin, but he looked different now. The stern face was gone. He carried a special collar with colorful stones. "For Neri," he said, offering the collar. "Symbol of wisdom." In old days, white Mirai wore these as council advisors. Nari accepted the gift with surprise. "Thank you," she said softly. Elder Dojin knelt to look at the cubs. "We lost much by rejecting the white ones for so long. Our stories tell of their great wisdom, but fear made us forget." More changes had come to the colony. Dr. Bora had set up a special research center to study albino Mirai abilities. She had found 3 more white cubs in other Mirai communities and brought them to Hyson 7 for safety. Other colonies ask how we work with white Mirai. Elder Dojin told Han. Word spreads across the stars. Han nodded. "Good. No cubs should be abandoned just for being different." Director Kyung also visited that day. She came with official papers. "The Colony Council has created a new position," she announced. "Neri will be our first Mirai Human Relations Officer." Neri's eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes," Director Kyung said. "Who better? You understand both worlds now." Outside the workshop, a small crowd gathered. It was the 1-year celebration of the power crisis that had changed everything. People had brought food and drinks to share. Gino, Neri's brother, had become a regular visitor. Today he brought toy mice for the cubs. They'd batted them around happily, their white fur flashing as they played. Next week, 3 more white cubs arrived from Taurun Colony. Gino told Han. "Their parents heard about us and want them to grow up here." Han smiled. We'll make room. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered in the colony's main square. Director Kyung stood on a small platform to speak. 1 year ago, our colony faced its darkest hour, she said, and we were saved by those we had rejected. She motioned for Han, Nari, and the cubs to join her. This human showed us what compassion truly means, she continued. He broke rules to do what was right. And these Mirai showed us that difference is not something to fear, but something that makes us stronger together. The crowd cheered. Even some of those who had been most against the white Mirai now clapped. Later that evening, Han sat on the steps of his workshop. Nari sat beside him. The 3 cubs played nearby with other children, both human and Mirai. Did you ever think this would happen? Han asked. When I found you that night. Nari shook her head, was scared, thought cubs would die. And now look at them, Han said proudly. Taewon was showing the human child how to use his heightened senses to find hidden toys. Jun was helping fix a toy robot with his ability to sense electric paths. And Suk was sitting with Elder Dojin, who was teaching her old Mirai songs. You gave us life, Nari said simply. We gave Colony new vision. Han nodded. That was exactly right. His one act of compassion had started something much bigger than himself. It had changed a whole world. As stars began to appear in the sky, Han thought about how sometimes the smallest choices can make the biggest difference. One person refusing to look away. One person saying no to cruelty. One person showing compassion when others showed fear. That was all it took to begin a new story. A better story. For everyone. And as the 3 white cubs played under the stars, cubs that would have died if abandoned, Han knew that this was just the beginning of what they would achieve together.